Hello guys, welcome to a new video. Today we're going to do a beginner's guide on armor and what each one kind of does, in the fact of is like, why is this one white, why is this one blue, why is this one yellow, why is this one orange, what's the difference between them and why is it important. Okay, so first we're going to get off into here. We're going to really talk about like what white means. Okay, white means that there are no benefits to this item. Okay, it's just there. So the only benefits you're really going to be getting are armor and evasion, for instance, on these boots, which we talked about before, which are dexterity and strength. So it's going to just give you that armor and that evasion. There's going to be no additional benefit to it. Okay, there can be no additions to it. The next one is going to be the magic items. Now magic items can have two modifiers on them. So this one has armor and evasion rating, that's considered 1, and the regenerate life as another. So it can have a maximum of 2, and we'll go into more specific details of like how we check those out in just a second, because right now you can't see it, right? It just looks, it actually looks like 3 on here. We go to the next one, we go to these rare items, and you can see that they can have a max of 6. Of course, this one has one that gives you a dual, so it's going to give you 2 modifiers for 1. So that's why it looks like 7. It's the same thing as these 3. Okay, and then we have unique items. Unique items can have as well as max of 6, and they give you specific stats that cannot be modified. Like you can't change out, for instance, this one you can't change maximum life out for something else. It's going to be always maximum life. Now the number can change depending on what is preset by that unique item. So the maximum life could roll 40, could roll 50, or somewhere in between. Now you look at this and you're like, well, this one, you know, these boots, they have 7 on there. How do we like see exactly what this actually does? Well, if you press your escape button, go into your options, and then go into the UI tab, you're going to scroll pretty much all the way down, and if you look, you'll see advanced mod descriptions. Now you want to make sure that that is checked. If it is not checked, then go ahead and check it. Now what this does, when you open up your inventory again with I, or whatever preset you set it to, you can then hold Alt over the top of the item. It's going to give you some additional information. So if we look at these normal boots, you can see that there is an item level of 81. We'll get into the importance of what that item level means in just a minute. Now if we go over to the magic items, you can see that it has a item level of 68, and then it has a prefix of the armor and evasion rating. Now this is where the advanced mod description comes into play. So we can see that the prefix modifier has a tier 2, and the suffix modifier has a tier 7. Okay, the way that this works, the higher the tier, the better the item. Okay, not necessarily to say that everything, even if you have all tier 1, it could be really crappy bonuses for you. It's not going to be helpful, it's not going to sell, but tier 1 is better than a tier 7, okay, in the same category. So if you have regenerate life tier 1, it's probably going to give you regenerate like 20 to 25 life per second instead of 1 to 2. So this is where I was talking about you could have 2 modifiers. So magic items can have 1 prefix and 1 suffix. That's it. We go into the rare items, and we can see that this one has 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes, thus making it 6 modifiers. Okay, you cannot have any more than those 6 modifiers, 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes. You can't have 4 prefixes and 2 suffixes. No, it's 3 and 3. That's how it is. Again, you can see that this one is item level 78 with a tier 1 armor and evasion, and a tier 5 increased armor and evasion with increased stun and block recovery, with tier 3, tier 4 resistance, dexterity, and tier 2 lightning res. Okay, so this is, you know, not that bad. If this was like day 1 and you got these boots, like it gives you lots of life, dexterity. The only thing is it doesn't give you movement speed. but it does give you life, cold res, and lightning res. So if you don't need movement speed but you really need the resistance, these boots would be pretty good for you, like on day 1, 2, or 3, or anyone starting out in the league for the first time. Now this is where we get into the unique items. Okay, uniques are a little bit different, just in the fact that they have stats that don't really change too much. Okay, so you can't change the prefixes or suffixes, they are a set number. So if we look at this one, we have, it says unique modifier. Okay, so that means it cannot be changed, but you can see how in the first line it says 14 and then it says 14-18%. So the 14 to 18 is the range that it can roll. So it can roll anywhere from that 14 to the 18 in that area. Same thing with the evasion, it can roll anywhere between 160 and 200, giving it a 40 number, or I guess it's a percentage, a 40% difference, right? And the same thing with the life, it can roll anywhere from 35 to 45. The rest of the stats, there are no adjustments. If it does not have those brackets, you cannot change those stats. So it's always going to have 15% increased movement speed for 9 seconds, and it's always going to have 15% increased movement speed. Okay, so it's those ones are fixed. They will not change. They're always going to be the same. Now, we're going to go into currency and what it does in another episode, and how to adjust those to make them roll what we want them to roll. It's really helpful, especially for solo self-found or even starting out players who don't know that, oh, I have the worst rolls you can possibly get on this item. Now, these are complete trash. I need to, hopefully find some better ones that have, better rolls. Well, that's not necessarily true. Okay. We have two things that can help. So for like these rare ones, we have two things that can help. We have harvest crafting for one, so we can remove. So like if we wanted to get a higher tier life, a higher tier, let's say cold res, because 37 is enough. We want to get to a tier 1. You can do a remove cold, add cold harvest craft, or we can put a divine orb. And like I said, we'll get into that into another episode. But that is kind of the basics of what we do with this. Now, we were talking about item level. Why is item level important? Well, this is exactly why item level is important. If we go to craftofexile.com and we type in any type of boots, you can actually search your specific boots. So we have dragon scale boots, right? So we can look right here where it says item level. Now, the item level on an item cannot be changed. Whatever it drops as is what it is. You cannot increase it, you cannot decrease it. It's always going to be the same item level for that item. It is not going to change. No matter what you do to it, it's always going to be the same item level. So why is that important? So item level determines what maximum tier you can get on an item, or each stat. So if we look over here and we look at cold resistance, 84 is the max. So if we go ahead and click on that, we can see that the max cold resistance would have to be an item level of 84, and it will give you somewhere between 46 and 48. Now if we go back to our item and we look, we see that we only have a item level of 78. So with an item level of 78, we can only get a tier 2. We cannot go any higher than the item level suggests. So we have a 72, we have a 78 item, so it's going to be maximum here because we don't hit that 84 threshold. So if we were looking at, say we wanted to do movement speed, the highest we can get on these boots are actually only a 33 or 30%, because we have the minimum is a 55. And the next one above that for a 35% movement speed is an 86. We do not have an 86, but we do have a higher than 55. So we can actually roll a 30% modifier on here, and it would be relatively easy with harvest crafting. So if you have an open prefix, which means you have no prefixes, 1, 2 prefixes, then you can put on another prefix. You can either do that through the bench crafting over here. And you can see here's all your prefixes. So we don't have any open prefixes, so it's going to block it. But if you have an open prefix, it's going to give you a white, and you can craft on whichever one you want. Now, with that, you cannot do double of a certain item. So if you look here on the right side, you'll see that there's a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, these are linked crafts, which means you cannot have another one of the same link. So we cannot have number 2 armor and max life with a evasion rating and maximum life. They are linked with a 4, which means you cannot put them together. Okay, same thing goes with crafting on the bench. All of these other 4s are also linked with that same one. Anything with a 4 on here is all going to be linked. You can only have one of them. Doesn't matter which one you put, you cannot have another one. Well, that's why it's really important to know like prefixes versus suffixes and like what you can and cannot get on there. So if you have, say, an item level 83 boots and you're trying to roll this lightning resistance and you keep getting tier 2 and then you get tier 5 and then you get tier 7, then you get tier 2 again, and you're like, man, I just can't get tier 1. Well, that's because you do not have an item level of 84 as your item. So you really need to pay attention when you're trying to roll specific stats with harvest crafting. You cannot roll a higher tier if your item level does not suffice the minimum requirement. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ding the bell downstairs for the following videos that are coming out. The next one, I believe, we're going to be doing currency and how that affects our crafting, specifically for a solo self-found, and what the reason is for each type of currency. It's going to be very important to know, and it's actually a pretty basic thing that you kind of have to understand to be able to play this game. Currency is the one thing that drives the entire game, including the market and how to craft your specific expensive items. If you have any questions, please put them down in the comments down below, and until next time, guys, peace out.